Hey guys, it's your girl Caitlin, welcome back, and today we're going to try something a little bit different. First off, we're going to try and actually get sound levels right, so yeah, but you know, don't hold your breath guys, let's be serious here. And secondly, the last couple of days there was the first official 3v3 tournament for Classic TBC, and oh, thank you, there was a Shaman. There was the Shaman playing, they were playing Shatter Play. The whole tournament's fantastic. I put a link down to the edited but official version from Asmongold himself. And yeah, so before we go forwards, we're going to be discussing the Shatter Play and particularly the Shaman's play in that tournament. This is not any way about targeting his play or anything like that. I'm critiquing his play, but it's not malicious. The point isn't to go fucking tell him to he's shit or that I said he was shit or anything like that. This is us looking at very high quality Shaman play, trying to be adults about it and discuss some of the errors but also some of the really good things that happen throughout the game. And at the end of the day, he's playing Shatter Play, which is a comp I'm not 100% familiar with. I've not played it extensively, I've played it very limited, so he's going to be doing things that I'm just not familiar with. So that said, that out the way, let's jump into this and let's have a gander at some good Shaman. Okay, here we are. So this is the first game. As you can see, everybody playing is actually spec discipline. Yep, slight overlay issues there, but we have got Oxton, we call him Les, and Venruki on the Shatter Play, and they're playing against an interesting team that I'm not very familiar with, but it's sort of a very Eurocomp-esque, massively high crowd control, and a powerful team. And before we even starting, I'm just going to point out some of the little issues I have with the start in particular. First off, he doesn't snapshot his first Earth Shield. There's a variety of ways you can do it. I put a thing up now because I've done a video about it and I don't want to go into it, I don't want to waste time talking about it, but there's various ways of making the first Earth Shield you do incredibly powerful, and he's choosing not to do that. Fair play. Secondly, his shield choice. I personally would have used a different shield. It's something that's come up in my stream recently. People ask why am I using this shield in particular. I'm using a spell power shield, and the reason is I do use this shield. I also use a spell power shield, and I swap my shields. Mid arena you can swap your weapons. It allows rogues to shiv on different poisons, and it allows us as shamans to maximize what we need. It's no different from a mage swapping to a stat stick for evocation, or a druid using again stat stick for innovate, things like that. I'm not sure this guy's history, how familiar he is with TBC, so these are things that are going to come with time and practice, but that's the first thing that stands out to me. Okay, so the next thing we're going to talk about is I'm going to try my absolute best not to bitch about tornadoes and cyclones too much. They're stupid, they're ridiculous, but we won't go into that. They're playing in Nagrand. It's a hard match, and again, something that they make what I would consider an early mistake, and again I think this is something that's going to come from just familiarity and understanding of what to do. We're going to skip forward to the actual start of the game. Here we go. So this is a natural setup to make. I'm going to pause it again. This position they take here is perfectly natural. It's kind of what you do playing twos and things like that. Playing a Shatter Play comp, especially when you've got a Shaman, a Mage, and a Priest who are all at this point in the game relatively weak mana wise compared to a Warlock who has infinite mana, technically sort of a Druid who's got a lot of mana, and a Mage who's not too bad. You want to be creating pressure and forcing them to fight you. As we see, what happens here is something that a mistake I've commonly made. Plus Venruki backpedaling, what the fuck's that, bro? Come on, unbind that shit. S is a really nice bind. Embrace it. Yep, so what we see is a mistake that we started making when I first started playing Shadow Play and things like that, and even just Shaman in general, is giving particularly in Nagrand, giving your opponent space to do what you're about to see, which is run the fuck away. You know, they're playing in the middle like that, that's fine. They've decided they don't want the line of sight. Okay, that's fine. Trying to play around your terms. We've got some really nice burst here in a second, if I remember correctly. Yeah, big burst, and then he just blinks back, and there you go. Now the commentators are actually saying at this point they need to be going forward, they should be going aggressively, but they can't. You know, they've got too many slows. He's around the corner already. You know, what my suggestion would be is to, rather than go to the left hand pillar and give them this distance, go to the front left hand pillar. So where Venruki is right now is where they needed to start out. That means that being both offensively and defensively, your totems will be behind that pillar to his left. The totems are impacting you whether you're being aggressive or defensive, rather than having to replace them as you're moving around. Now, is it possible for Jinx or Jigsaw to, you know, line of sight the same? Yes, but you haven't then got, you know, if he's where he was previously, he couldn't blink into line of sight or out of line of sight because of the way the positioning was. So I think they needed to push forward aggressively and take it from there. The next thing, unfortunately, we don't actually get much of a Shaman point of view, which is a little bit disappointing. But one of the things I have noticed throughout the game is the totem stomping from teams against them is not the craziness that I'm accustomed to. We haven't got, you know, a warlock pet literally running from totem to totem to totem to totem to totem, just constantly stomping them. This bloodlust here is pretty nice. He's repositioned himself. He hasn't repositioned his totems. A mistake that's consistent throughout this best of 3 is that he doesn't actually ever place Frost Nova totem. Sorry, not Frost Nova, sorry, Frost Resistance totem, which is fire. So, I mean, he's not going to be using Searing totem, Magma, or Nova. So there's absolutely no reason why he shouldn't be putting down Frost Resistance totem and giving his whole party 70% Frost Resist. You know, I'm not sure quite why he's doing that, but yeah, I do actually like this movement in. I think it's later than it needed to be, but it's still really, really solid movement. And his positioning a little bit, dodgy backpedaling on everybody. I'm just sort of staring at the Shaman now. And we're about to come to the end, and we'll watch the end and then I'll sort of make my critique. So the commentary don't actually catch what happens at this point, but basically he gets counterspelled is what happens. Again, I don't know if I would have done this. I've got complete hindsight. I can sit here and be like, well, you should have just done this. It was really easy and obvious. It's never like that, obviously, when you're playing it. So I'm not fucking going to pretend that I would have exactly done what I'm about to, you know, say he should have tried. But he actually does it in reverse order is essentially what I... So if you see, he gets CS, he realizes he's a Tauren and he goes in for a War Stomp. If we jump back to just before he gets counterspelled, so he's casting a healing wave. I don't know whether this is an accident. I don't know whether he thought he had an S maybe, or it looks like he's got tongues on as well, but I couldn't be quite sure. Hopefully he hasn't got tongues. Hopefully Venruki's keeping that shit off of him. Yeah, so, or maybe he's just really trying to sell for the fake cast, which is probably what I would actually expect, rather than, you know, such a simplistic misplay. If in this position what he does isn't cast and actually runs forward and War Stomps where his Shadow Priest currently is, he's going to hit both the pet and the mage in the stun, and then he can cast a heal during the stun duration on both of those. Now he can get feared during that, he could get Death Coiled, he could get Feral Charged, it's up, so it's a possibility, but that compared to trying to deal with double counter spells, you know, even just a blanket at this point, you'd probably still die. So he needs to look for the alternative as well is Venruki goes for a blanket counter spell onto the mage, which again I actually think he does afterwards. Yeah, he goes for the blanket there, but it's too late at this point. He blankets him, but his charm's already been CS. So Venruki had the good idea, just a little bit too late. And then, you know, he can block it off anyway. And there's the war stomp, but again, just that little bit too late, unfortunately. And yeah, tornadoes, yay. Okay, game number 2. Again, he's not snapshotted his Earth Shield, and he's got no totems down. I like to place totems just to his left. They act through the wall, but they can't be targeted as easily. You know, you can't just wand them, but they will still hit you through the wall. And in this match in particular, I think he would have really benefited from those early totem placements. He does what I what I call feeding totems, which is you sort of run forward and then stagger them. So you go bump, 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 bump. Yeah, he ends up with, again, there's no fire resistance totem. I think at this point, he really likes to jump. Not quite sure why. Just obviously personal preference. So he's going to have what I probably assume. Well, it's healing spring or mana spring. They're pretty much the same thing at the end of the day. There's not a huge difference. Just depends how you feel and how you play. There's going to be a tremor totem, and he's put a grounding down, so it's already been used. There's no frost resistance totem. This is TBC to a T here. He gets death coiled and runs completely into Africa. You know, he then runs backwards, which is fine. This NS's himself. This is the real sort of mechanically or micro play that I don't like. Is he then turns and runs back in. So I'm fairly sure Venruki actually hits a CS on the mage. So the mage either cannot cast, or yeah, I'm fairly sure the mage isn't able to cast at this point in time. But he also seems to lag a little bit. He gets CS'd again. If he had just run back to the start zone and turtled there, he then gets. There's two options that his opponents can do. They can either swap target to a target that they don't feel as comfortable doing, or they can follow him and take the punishment. But in doing so, they're going to pull themselves away from the line of sight in the center of the map and expose themselves to the damage coming from the shadow play. So this movement here is just a little bit, I can see what he's trying to do, and again, in the moment, hindsight, I can sit here for 20 minutes and analyze this game, in every single aspect and be like, well, you shoulda, coulda, woulda. He didn't have that chance. He had half a second to make a decision, and he made a decision. It could have turned out to be right, could turn out to be wrong. Personally, I just think it was slightly wrong. But again, like the biggest thing this whole time in my head, when I'm watching this, I'm just like, whoa, buy a res turret, man, just buy a res turret. And yeah, it just gets brutalized at this point. Again, I don't know what gear he's wearing. He could have, he could have more resilience or less resilience than I expect. And again, I'm not quite familiar with the rules of this tournament when it comes to gear sets, but in all the tournaments I've played in, I will have at least 3, sometimes 4 different gear sets. So I'll still be wearing, 4-piece PvP, but I will have, well, not even 4-piece PvP sometimes, generally 4-piece PvP. I'll have different gem sets on those. I'll have different off pieces. I'll have different trinkets. I'll have everything available because it's all gear that's available, and it gives you these little advantages versus different comps and different ways that they choose to play. But there were still really good games, and some great chat play. Okay, here we go. Game number 3, or set 2, game 1. Against one of the scummiest double healer teams I know. This was actually a Hydra favourite back in the day with Beastie and Cherez, but yeah, again, I'm kind of still not 100% content with this. Venruki's initial movement's great, but I just think the whole team needs to be there with him. He's already placed totems down, and he's just having to move to replace totems. It doesn't need to happen against a BM Hunter, and I think that's one of the things that they, again, a strategic mistake I think they make is, by all means, go for the kill on the Hunter, but there's something that's just as important to kill, it's much easier to kill, and that's the fucking pet. When the big red's over, you can murder that pet. Pets are infinitely harder to control than an actual player, because you can't really control it, you can just pull it around in order to be doing something effectively. Side note here, Mana Tide really early, really like it. amazed it doesn't get stomped. It's in a really, really open position, obvious position, and it's not exactly fucking subtle. But yeah, that's just the way tournaments are played, and if people want to let them do that, they'll let them do that. But yeah, you can see at this point, the pet is getting macroed or microed well, sorry, but there are ample opportunities. It's on Venruki. Venruki can run around to the another pillar, pull the pet deliberately out of line of sight. It's got no resilience, so he can just Nova, Ice Lance, Fire Blast, and kill it. It can't trinket, it can't feign death, it can't do any of these things. And if you can force them to pop, pain suppression and NS on the fucking pair, then you're golden. That's a pretty good fucking start to the match. So yeah, I think they certainly should have looked for it, even if it's an additional target. As a healer, the more targets you have to be aware of, the more stretched your attention becomes. So creating the possibility of it happening is always important, even if you're not 100%, gonna do it. And yeah, level 1 Frost Nova into a couple of Ice Lances isn't gonna make a difference. But yeah, one of the other things I didn't mention in the first Nagrand game that they played, that I actually really think is great. Oh yeah, tornadoes. Good job, Blizzard. Good job. 1,600 damage, 500 damage. Venruki, is now going to die in the middle of Africa because his flipping tornado punted him over there. But yeah, so the other good thing as well to create this aggressive sort of aggressive move forwards is that Shadow Priest doesn't have the greatest range. Mind Flay is pretty short range. So yeah, by pushing in aggressively, you can take advantage of Psychic Scream. It's not easy to run away when they're on your face, and yeah, you got some other shortcut spells. Okay, here we are, game 2, set 2, Lordaeron. I like this choice from them. I really like playing on Lordaeron against anything that's not Turbo Cleave. I like it as a Shaman in particular, again, unless I'm playing Turbo Cleave. These guys aren't, so I'm really liking this. And one of the big things you'll see here is that because of the way the line of sight can be dominated and you can have the totems in the center, it creates that situation when your totems are working both offensively and defensively. Really big fear there, really nice fear. That was fucking solid. You can see when he's being hyper aggressive, when they're pushing in, when they're not giving them the line of sight, which is obviously easier said than done on most maps. It's okay on this one, that's obviously why they picked it. They're pushing him away, they're getting split up, and they're separated. And if they want to come forward, like they're going to come forward, he's just going to run towards them, scare them off with another Psychic Scream. They're forced back, he's separating the two of them. They're getting zoned so well by Lezo at this point. It's absolutely fucking fantastic play. They've still got to deal with the trap, which is a bit shitty, but on a scale of 1 to 10, this is absolutely insane zoning from Lezo. Really well played. Look at them, just absolutely terrified to come forward because they know they're just going to eat a fear, and they've already trinket the first fear. They've got to be healing. They've already popped pain stuff. Down he goes. This match is won entirely by positioning, especially from the Shadow Priest. Just absolutely decimating the double healers that just can't. So here we are, game 3. Game 3 of set 2. Nagrand again. Tornadoes are going to meme. I've already recorded this once, unfortunately, and it is a long match, and I don't want to do that. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm just going to cut it a little bit and highlight some of the really positives and some of the truly meme-worthy stuff. The first thing I think, sort of issue I have is that they've just won this match by playing hyper-aggressive and bullying people around the map, and then I know they move much quicker into the aggressive position, and it's much better than it was, in their first set playing on Nagrand, where they're just like turtling, and they've obviously learned from those mistakes, and that's some really quick adaptation, really nice adaptation. But no, it's still taking them time to get into a position where they want to be. There's no point in giving them space. That said, when it comes to the adaptation as well, the thing you're going to see throughout this entire match is some absolutely fantastic positioning from the priest and the druid. They just lost the last match because they were together getting double feared, and then they got bottlenecked because they didn't want to push out. And this time they are just going to play one pillar each. They are basically never ever near each other, and it's just an incredibly, it sounds really simple, it sounds really easy, but to do it consistently for as long as they do, it's like a 7-minute game. Very impressive. that said, the other thing that sort of when it comes to strategy in this match is I really wish they'd gone for the pet as the shatter play. You know, there's a couple of opportunities when, you know, they 100% could have killed it. I think, well, I say 100%. It was a very vulnerable, whether it's because low mana or you know, whatever. But yeah, I would have liked to see that. What I do say though is I really like this early mana tide from Oxton. His mana tide placement, his totem placement, I'm not a massive fan of, but the actual use of it is really solid. And they're obviously trying to play this slower than the previous match. They've decided this is how they're going to win. One thing I can't see is throughout any of these games is I've not really been too. It's a bit tricky to understand exactly how Oxton's using its purge. Obviously, shatter play is not quite as brutalized as shadow play when it comes to things like shadow protection, but I would be assuming that certainly on the primary target, he probably would be at least just getting rid of the shadow proc at the very least. Yeah, no, this is he needs to put a Trevor Totem down in a different position, because he could have just psychic screened all 3 people and chose not to. It's a bit silly. I suppose he's pretty so yeah, this is at this point mana wise, they're looking super Gucci. Evocation has just been used on the druid. Sorry, innovation. There we go. Innovation has just been used. Priest used Shadow Fiend. He's you know, he's polyed. Go for the pet, boys. Smack the pet. You know, he's sitting a full cyclone. Whether, you know, you can kill that pet. That pet can die. This is when some truly beautiful design from Blizzard comes in. Yeah, really nice. We want tornadoes, pure skill, gets punted once, has to stand still to heal, gets punted again, then gets cycloned because just shame can't move out of the way of the tornado, instantly comes out of cyclone and gets knocked in the opposite direction. Like, sort of fucking out, Blizzard. As I said, you know, this game starts to drag a little bit, so I will edit now when we jump back to a point where I sort of think it's worth noting anything of real significance at this point. Okay, so we're back. Again, stop backpedaling, Oxton, please. Unbind it. S is a really good bind. Embrace it. It's really nice and useful. So here, mana wise, we're all pretty low, but he's getting mana tied up. And this is one of the times when just a little bit of more practice on this map in particular will help. He gets feared to Africa, just because, you know, Tremor's never going to be bumped. And then he mana tides here. Again, if he had mana tided in the little alcove where that shadow site is, the mana tide would have, you know, still be hitting everybody, and it wouldn't have just got shot by a hunter. Or it might have been shot by a hunter, but it definitely wouldn't have been as obvious. So yeah, a little bit of missed totem placements, I think, sometimes. And the other thing as well is, obviously you can see he's swapping his earth shields around a lot. I'm just going to jump back. You know, that is, I'm fairly sure that's a max rank earth shield that he's swapping around. Again, done a video about earth shield. Down rank it to rank 1 is, you know, perfectly viable, especially if it's getting dispelled, especially if you're running you know, it still gives good healing and it still gives you the 30% anti pushback. So, you know, it's a perfectly viable you know, play to make and to use, and you won't be battering your mana quite so much. He tries to shock here. You can see the little movement, the little swing, but it doesn't quite get the angle on him, and unfortunately he dies in the cyclone. All in all, you know, it's brilliant to see Shatter play. It's brilliant to see Shaman. I love the tournament. As I said, there'll be a link to this video in the description. This isn't about berating anybody. It's not about saying you're shit or anything like that. It's not, you know, it's just critique, and it's about us, you know, watching some top tier Shaman play together, discussing it, and hopefully learning, you know, some of the good things to do and some of the mistakes that, you know, people will make, especially when they're sort of starting the TBC experience. So thank you very much for watching, guys. I hope it's been somewhat insightful, and I will put some more generic shit up of me playing Ret Resta or something in the coming days. But yeah, let me know what you think, guys. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. I meant to say that at the start of the video. I realised this. I've been training my YouTube talent. I meant to say that at the start. because less people get to this point. But no, fuck it, you know. If you don't want to watch the whole video, then don't. It's your choice. So thank you very much for watching as always, guys. I appreciate it. I'll be streaming later this evening, and